The Age of Fallibility. What is wrong with America? Today's guest, George Soros.
When people think of George Soros, the first word that comes to mind, I was quoting from a report I read this morning, is money. And everyone wants to know how much money is Mr. Soros worth. How much are you worth, Mr. Soros?
Well, I don't disclose it, just to make it more interesting.
But it is interesting to have people talking about you having a lot of money, isn't it?
That's true, but I do disclose that we spend $400 million a year in the foundation.
I want to ask you about a quote that, something you wrote. You said that you set up a foundation when, and I'm quoting here, I made more money than would have been healthy for my family to have. Is it possible to have too much money?
Yes. I think it's very hard for, let's say, trust fund babies to find a purpose in life.
Are there advantages to having a lot of money?
Great advantages. It's having a lot of money, I call it a high-class problem.
A high-class problem. It also, of course, gives you entree into the political arena, especially in the United States. You are known for contributing a lot of money to political campaigns in the United States. Talk to me about the 2006 election. Can you tell us how much money you donated in the campaigns?
I spent about $8 million. But actually, I don't do it to get access, and if anything, my efforts in 2004 have meant that I was totally excluded from the political discussions.
But your efforts worked in 2006, wouldn't you say? I mean, you must be a happy man.
Well, I am a happy man, but I don't think that it's my efforts that have had this result. I think it's reality that finally has come home.
Let's look to the future while we're talking about politics. Who would you like to see run for President of the United States in 2008?
Well, it is too early to say, and I don't, although I must say that I think that it would be desirable to have Barack Obama throw his hat into the ring. Because he's a new voice that doesn't carry the baggage of the war on terror. And I think he would be very inspiring. He may not win, but I think he ought to be heard from.
Do you think the Democrats have someone who could win?
Yes.
Who do you think that is?
Well, as a matter of fact, I think right now, any Democratic candidate would have a better chance than a Republican candidate.
Including, let's say, Hillary Clinton.
Including Hillary Clinton.
Let's talk about your book for here, The Age of Fallibility. Interesting title. What does that mean, The Age of Fallibility?
You know, you had the Enlightenment where we put our faith in reason. And now we have to recognize that we cannot base our decisions on knowledge. We have to bring a bias to bear. This brings about an uncertain outcome. It makes it very difficult to deal with uncertainty, and people seek to escape from it by finding ideologies. But those ideologies are false, exactly, because they don't recognize that we don't have the knowledge that we need to be certain. So we need to learn to live with uncertainty, and that is what leads to an open society, which is, I think, preferable to closed societies, repressive regimes.
You say in your book that the American public is tone deaf and that people don't care about the truth. Do you really believe that?
It's strange that people don't really care very much about the truth. Americans sort of worship success, and they don't really care how success is achieved. And I think that creates an unstable situation.
But success does not exclude the truth. necessarily, does it?
No, but it is possible to manipulate the truth, and we have become very good at it. There is, a tremendous manipulation of the truth during the Bush administration.
Are we, or is the United States, is the West losing the war on terrorism?
The war on terror is a false metaphor, and there's no way in which you can win it. And actually the way we have pursued it has increased the terrorist threat, because terrorists kill innocent people for political ends. In fighting terrorism, we must go out of our way not to do the same thing. But actually the Bush administration, particularly in Iraq, has humiliated and tortured people, and that has really fed the insurrection. And today there are many more people contemplating terrorist acts than there were 5 years ago.
The Europeans have a somewhat different approach to fighting terrorism, more consensus oriented and less conflict oriented. Let me ask you, has Europe become the better America?
No, but I think that Europe has an important role to play, because we need greater international cooperation to confront the problems that are common to humanity, like global warming, rogue regimes, tyrants like Saddam Hussein, nuclear proliferation, and so on. America has been the leader of international cooperation traditionally.
Should the European Union be the counterweight to the United States?
Yes, I think we need to re-establish the international community, what we used to call the West. It now has to be more comprehensive, because there are democracies in other parts of the world, like India, Korea, the South American countries. So we need to re-establish a community of democracies. It's been undermined, destroyed by the Bush administration. I think Europe needs to get its act together, and I think now, with the outcome of the elections, America will be much more receptive, and so we can regain the international order, the world order that we need.
Mr. Soros, you have said that one of the biggest threats to Europe is Russia. Why?
Well, you do have a new threat with Russia emerging as a petro superpower, using its monopolistic position as a supplier of gas for political ends. And we have seen it trying to suborn Ukraine, now Georgia. And Europe has become too dependent on Russian gas.
Final question for you. I know that you are a very busy man. Do you ever have time, do you ever find time to spend your money?
Well, I'm spending it at the clip of $400 million a year.
In your foundations?
In my foundation.
Yeah, and what about just shopping? Do you ever have time to be the normal Mr. Soros?
I look after myself pretty well.
Mr. Soros, thank you very much for your time and for talking with us today.
It's a pleasure.
The weather for Germany first, and November conditions remain mild across the country for this time of year, with winter still feeling like a long-off prospect. It'll stay relatively moderate over the next few days, and the sun will even get a look in at the weekend. Turning to the rest of Europe now, and it'll stay wet but warm in Spain. Italy can look forward to temperatures around 20 degrees Celsius. It'll be chilliest in Moscow, where the mercury won't exceed 6 degrees.